fans view this Sunday morning. I was going to record the video, but I'm waiting on some news coming back from Scotland, so I had to delay recording the video just to do a live instead. Just check that's okay. That's fine. So, this morning we are going to do a rating of the players from yesterday, and Brendan Rodgers was asked after the game. He was asked after the game, will he be watching a certain football game today? And Rodgers went, probably not. But in all fairness, it's important that we done our job today. Not only did we do our job today, but if we had done our job last week up in Perth, today would have been Coronation Day. Yes, it would have been the day that we were made champions. Hence the reason that quite a lot of people just got up and walked out before the end of the game yesterday. But in all fairness, we do have the biggest game of the season till the next one. Now, the biggest game of the season for us now is obviously the Scottish Cup semi-final. But no matter what the result is today, if the Rangers do get beat by Aberdeen today, Celtic will be crowned champions. And if not, we're going to have to wait till the end of the month. We are going to have to wait till the end of the month to be crowned champions. We're just going to have to wait. It's as simple as that. Anyway, there's a bit of Celtic transfer news before we start rating the players from yesterday. Celtic have been linked with Stoke City's Dutch winger. Celtic have been linked with the 23-year-old who joined the second tier club in a $3 million switch last year. He scored 6 goals and provided 4 assists. To me, the fact that we're looking for a winger, I mean, we need one because Lewis Palmer has left the building. Lewis Palmer has an option to buy in his contract. Morning, Tam, how are you? There is an option to buy. Not so much an obligation to buy, there's an option to buy when it comes to Lewis Palmer. So it does mean that we're one player down. Yang can't seem to get near the pitch, and I still think that Nico Kuhn could be a player that could be moving on. So we have been linked with a winger this morning. Hoops have already, they've got Nico Kuhn, they've got Yang, they've got James Forrest, who made the start yesterday, and I thought he was making some good runs, but he just didn't get that elusive goal that he's been looking for to get him up there and scoring for, what is it, 15 seasons now? Anyway, the fact that Marco Tilio, remember him? Marco Tilio will leave the club this summer, he's been on loan forever back in Australia, and Lewis Palmer will also leave the club. So that's 2 wingers that would have been in and around training. So Celtic are looking at this under 21 star who's under contract until June 2027. Could he make a quick-fire exit from Stoke and head to Celtic? He's a left-footed player who performs on the right wing, just like Kuhn. I think there's going to be big changes this summer, definitely. I think a couple of the so-called big stars. How many players in the summer, said Paddy Burns. Paddy, I think that we're going to have a bit of a shock this summer. I think that Brendan Rodgers will bring in about 4 or 5 players. That's, if we look at the 6 players that are out on loan, you've got Lewis Palmer, you've got Marco Tilio, you have Stephen Welsh, you've got Gustav Lager-Belke. Who's the other 2? Odom Ohm is 5. Who's the other one? There's another one. That's forgotten, but that's all players that will be looking to leave the club this summer. When you then add into the mix Nico Kuhn, and you add into the mix Rio Hatate, who I think will leave this summer, there's going to be some turnaround in players. And Brendan Rodgers said it on Friday. He said, look, we either change the team because this team is just not performing the way that Brendan Rodgers. You could say yesterday the team was brilliant. One touch pass. First half, absolutely brilliant. The boss got their finger out in gear, and we're going to rate the players in just a minute. Morning, Gemma, how are you? But when it comes to what Brendan Rodgers wants the team to be doing at the business end of the season, they're just not doing it. For whatever reason, they're too comfortable. And Brendan Rodgers would never allow players to get comfortable at Celtic. Definitely, it won't allow them to get comfortable. Anyway, the fact that we are linked with a winger, I think there's going to be at least a turnaround of probably about 5 or 6 players could leave and come in this summer. But Cameron Carter-Vickers was asked after the game yesterday, as well as Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers says, nah, I'm too busy, I'm going to be doing stuff. I probably won't watch the Aberdeen Rangers game, to be honest. Cameron Carter-Vickers was asked if he would be watching the game, and even Cameron Carter-Vickers said, I don't know. Maybe we haven't made any decisions as a group if we're going to sit and watch it together. Go around the house. Do they crack open a beer? To sit and watch the game like a lot of Celtic fans? Brendan Rodgers and Cameron Carter-Vickers said, we can only do our job. If Aberdeen win, brilliant. Whoever wins the league is always deserving to be champions. If Rangers do avoid defeat, Celtic will need to wait until the 26th and 27th of this month, due to the fact that there is a certain cup game. There's a cup game next week, which is the big game, because we've just been beaten by St Johnstone. They're now going into that game knowing that they're going to be relegated. There's the percentage chance of them being relegated to not being relegated is quite high. So St Johnstone have nothing to lose at all. I mean, their manager's got every right to get them up. I'll be watching it, all right, said Tarmac. I doubt I'll be watching it, but what I'll do is I'll obviously have WhatsApp updates from the group chat for guys that were at the game yesterday. They'll be a bit excited to see if we win it sitting in the house. Anyway, before we talk about rating the players, I noticed there was a pitch invasion in Scottish football yesterday. It's a pitch invasion in Scottish football. Arbroath won the league with a 4-0 victory over Stenhousemuir, which created all sorts of nonsense and invaded the pitch. Anyway, it's just... Will Celtic go on the pitch? Because the stewards and that won't allow them, will they? 4 in a row is almost in the bag. So let's rate the players from yesterday after the fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I'm going to start off with the keeper, Sinisalo. Could have Sinisalo done better for the goal? You've got to say it was a fantastic... Was it even meant to be a crack at goal, or was it a cross that caught everybody off? I'm going to say that the St Johnstone goal was a cross. It was a cross that nobody was expecting to go into the back of the net. Everyone thought it was going to come in and about the 6-yard box. And if the St Johnstone player himself says, I was a shot at goal, I'm way to fling shite at yourself, pal. No, there's not a chance it was a shot on goal, but it was a goal. Could the keeper have done better at their goal yesterday? I'm not sure. It caught everyone off guard. So Sinisalo, I'm going to rate Sinisalo a 7. I'm going to rate him a 7. Tell me in the comments what you rate Sinisalo. I'm going to rate Sinisalo 7. I take it Trusty can't be trusted anymore. Exit door. I don't think so. I don't think so. I just think that there's certain players that thought they were a bit... Anyway, James Duffin says, morning Baz. As Brendan says, during the week, most players only stay with the team around 4 years. So we need to keep looking at new players. That puts in the bracket Ariel Hatate and Dyson Maeda. Is that a what? Is it? I'm just saying, just putting it out there. Not felt related, Baz, but have we Mark sitting here shouting at you on the TV? Yes. Oh, that's brilliant, Jim. I'm just sitting waiting. Someone's waters broke last night, so I'm sitting waiting on the phone call to say that it has arrived. So, talking about Sinisalo, Big Des says 7. Gemma says 7. James Duffin says 7. Big Des says hi to Gemma and Mark. I'm going to rate Sinisalo 7. I'm going to rate him 7. Right, Alistair Johnston. We'll start off with the defenders. Alistair Johnston. What do you rate Alistair Johnston after his exploits yesterday? He did have an interesting game. Cutting inside the pass to Dyson for the one that made it 2-0. And then he was replaced by Ralston, who had a fantastic game. Alistair Johnston, I'm going to give Alistair Johnston a 7.5. Alistair Johnston's going to get a 7.5 from me today. So tell me what you rate Alistair Johnston in the comments section. Club record for passes yesterday. It was, I noticed that, Grab Boy. I noticed it was we had over 1,000 passes. Usually we get around about 800 and odd, but it wasn't the side-to-side passing in the first half, was it? It was one-touch pass. James Duffin says 8, 7.5. Gemma says 8. Alistair Johnson 6. Alistair Johnson had a better game yesterday, untroubled, 7 plus. He's very dependable. Alistair Johnson is dependable. He knows when to step up for the big games. You know, he's an international player, and I think that Tony Ralston is unlucky that we've got such a good right back in Alistair Johnson. Him and James are linked up well, and I think that that's what's missing between Alistair Johnson and Nico Kuhn. Alistair Johnson and Nico Kuhn at the beginning of the season, you always had Alistair Johnson doing overlaps with Nico Kuhn, and they had an understanding which seems to be lost a little bit. Is that because of Nico Kuhn's head? Is that because Nico Kuhn thinks that he's got it in the bag and this league's easy? As Brendan Rodgers alluded to. Anyway, I rated Alistair Johnson 7.5. I think it was. Cameron Carter-Vickers. First goal of the season for Cameron Carter-Vickers. Absolute screamer for 25 yards. Defender, he's our best defender, whether you like it or not. I'm going to give Cameron Carter-Vickers a 9, just for that goal. I'm going to give Cameron Carter-Vickers a 9 just for that goal yesterday. I thought the goal was absolutely phenomenal. And when you look back at it, I mean, he comes up past Callum McGregor, and Callum McGregor is expecting him to pass the ball to him, and he just looks at Cameron Carter-Vickers looks at McGregor, and he just looks at him and keeps going. There's a space in front of him, so he just keeps going. He keeps going, and then he gets to the 25, and he's like, "Fuck it, I'm just going to have a shot." And it's an absolute screamer. And Adam Eda's standing at the 6-yard box going, "What the fuck? Where did that come from? What a goal from Cameron Carter-Vickers, says Tamak. Yep, I'm giving him a 9. And a 9.5? I'd give him a 9.5 all day long. Cameron Carter-Vickers says 8.5. Gemma says 9. James says 9. What a goal. 10 from Cameron Carter-Vickers. The man is a class player. He is a class player, but we need a better defender. We know the limitations. Liam Scales stepped into the game yesterday. We'll talk about him in a minute. We'll talk about Cameron. We'll talk about Liam Scales. Because Scales came in, and after we've tried Mark Norobski, who came in on a big price tag and was going to push Liam Scales out the team, and hasn't managed to do so. Austin Trustees came in because he's a left-sided player, and he's played well with Cameron Carter-Vickers up to a certain point. The manager, Brendan Rodgers, says that, look, Austin Trusty gets a game because in the Champions League we need someone that's quicker in getting back. And on the running scale, Liam Scales is slower than Austin Trusty. So that's why he was dropped from the team. Some people say it was unfair that Liam Scales was dropped from the team. But after recovering from a facial injury, it was the pass from Liam Scales to Cameron Carter-Vickers that sent Cameron Carter-Vickers on the run, wasn't it? And it was the sideward pass from Liam Scales to Cameron Carter-Vickers just halfway into the Celtic half, sending Cameron Carter-Vickers. So Liam Scales didn't do a lot wrong yesterday. I'm going to say that Scales a 7.5, maybe an 8, 7.5. Yeah, I'll go with 7.5 for Scales. Scales 7.5. Oh, there's a lot of other people going with 7.5. Age expressions on his face after, I think everyone's expression on their face after Cameron Carter-Vickers scored was unbelievable. 7.5, 7.5, 7.5. Scales had a good game yesterday. 7.5, 6.5 says Eddie. I said before, Taylor would be better than Hitate's position on the park. That would be a big change for the player. Scales is always willing to go forward. That helps our front line. Is that Pete? Good morning to you. I'm going to go 7.5 with Scales also. Right, next up is the man that some Celtic fans love to hate. It's the man that's freedom of contract until the end of the season. It's the man who walked onto the pitch yesterday before the game started with his little daughter. It's the want away fullback. Is he wanting away or is he just holding off? He brought his baby onto the pitch with the Celtic strip on, but Greg Taylor was effective. He plays the position better than anyone else in the park. But with the incoming Kieran Tierney situation, he doesn't want to. He's not thinking about sticking around Celtic much longer. Anyway, his runs, his crosses in that midfield, coming in inside, allowed to Callum McGregor to free up his position in the first half, which allowed Callum McGregor to get more freedom. But then in the second half, the St Johnstone number 22 was told to man-mark Callum McGregor, so that kind of brought Callum McGregor out of the play in the second half. So Greg Taylor, I'm going to give Greg Taylor a solid 7.5. Yeah, I think I'll give Greg Taylor a 7.5 also. Tell me what you think. Greg Taylor 8, Greg Taylor 9. Oh, there we go. Derek McInnes was praising Scales and Taylor after the game. There you go. Yep. Greg Taylor 8.5. Greg Taylor 8.5. Scales 8. Apart from a couple of missed passes, pushed the team forward. Greg Taylor 8.5. Taylor got man of the match, didn't he? Yes, he did get man of the match. And I think that was a bit cheeky. Giving Greg Taylor man of the match, because Sky knows what they're doing. And it's, let's give Greg Taylor man of the match so we can get an interview with him after the game. And you know the first thing that is, if Greg Taylor gets interviewed by the media, it's, where are you going? And why are you not signing a contract with Celtic, and where are you going? Brendan Rodgers and the club are right to protect the player from that kind of invasive, which it could mean one of two things. It could mean that Brendan Rodgers is seriously trying to talk him into staying at the club, and that it's not done and dusted where he's going to go next year, which I find is absolutely unbelievable, because a player of Greg Taylor's standard should have a club, or his agent should have a club lined up, and he should, under the fact that he could sign a pre-contract with anybody. You'd think that teams would be looking at him. Rio was man of the match, said Eddie. An 8 for Greg Taylor. Greg Taylor, we should make him an offer. James, he's got a contract sitting on the table. He just doesn't want to sign it because he wants to play first team football. Anyway, we move from the defence into the midfield, and the holding midfield captain, Callum McGregor. First half, he's passing, he's pressing, he's everything. He took control of the game. That allowed Arne Engels, it allowed Rio Hatate to just run riot in the first half, which Derek McInnes sorted out in the second half because they man-marked Callum McGregor. Callum McGregor was as solid, as dependable as he always is, and I'm going to give Callum an 8 for yesterday. I think Callum McGregor was an 8 all day long. James Duffin says, I would keep him as well. We need a second choice for KT. I've spoken about it loads of times, James. I think that we need to be bringing through the young players, and I think young Matthew Anderson, that's been out on loan for 2 seasons now, I think that he will be a perfect backup to Kieran Tierney. The fact that Kieran Tierney came through the club and excelled as a player and moved on, we need to, he knows what it's like. We need people like Kieran Tierney at the club to tell these younger players that have been out on loan, that have came back to Celtic, it's like, just, bide your chance, you will get game time, Callum Mack was superb yesterday, first half, an 8, that's what I've given him. Taylor would be a great player in midfield. He's shit at defending. That's an interesting one. Callum Mack 8, Eddie Quigley 8, Callum Mack 8. Here's an interesting one for you. With what age is, he's 27, isn't he? He's about the same age as Callum Mack. If we weren't to get Lennon Miller, as the talk is, and Lennon Miller seen as the sort of future Celtic captain, would you then bring in another left back and say to Greg Taylor, I'm going to change your position, I'm going to put you into a midfield position? Interesting. Callum McGregor is always the man who directs our play. It is that, but he's coming towards the end of his career, and this is the fear factor that I've got at Celtic just now. When Scott Brown was there, you knew that Callum McGregor was going to take over the reins. There was no one else. There was no one else at Celtic that you could say he's the next captain in waiting. Everyone knew it. Everyone around the club knew that Callum McGregor would be the next captain when Scott Brown retired. But just now, you're not too sure. I know it's a couple of seasons away yet, but I think that it's a worry that there's no obvious step in for a long-term captain. I don't like this the thought of someone like Alistair Johnson or Cameron Carter-Vickers becoming captain at Celtic, because no disrespect to them, but did they really see the long-term future as staying at Celtic until the end of their playing career? I maybe don't think so. I think that they'll want to move on, and especially Alistair Johnson, I think that he'll want to move on and try another league and try push his international career and try and see if he can get to the next level when it comes to a team that maybe gets to the later stages of the Champions League. I don't know. You don't know. But anyway, that's talk for another day. Miller's not coming to Celtic. His dad said this. His dad goes, to the barber I go to. Says, Jason, there we go. He's not coming to Celtic. I didn't. We then have an issue in this summer then. Who do we replace Rio Hatate with? And if his dad's going about telling everybody, well, where is he going then? Where is he going if he's not going to Celtic? Is he going to Italy? Jason, come on, tell us. Tell us, where's he going? And his barber just might be for his chat. Come on, barbers are like. All right, how's your son doing? Nah, he's fucking. Is he going to Celtic? No. His dad just put a flippant comment. Nah, he's not going to Celtic. He's not going to sit and tell the barber, who's then going to fucking post it all over and tell everybody that comes in. Oh, by the way, put bets on Lennon Miller no going to Celtic. And then he goes to Celtic and fucking everybody loses their money. But anyway, he's going to England. He's going to England. Will he go to England? Second tier in England? Well, that's a step down. Is it not? Well, remember this one, Jason. If he goes to the second tier in England after playing SPFL, I don't think that will send his career in the right trajectory. I think that's nonsense. I think he's better than a second tier club in England. And if you look at it, if you look at players that have went from Celtic into the second tier, they never make it. They might get into the Premier League, but they never go up the next level. And I think that Lennon Miller is the type of player that could go to the next level. There's more chance of him going to Italy. Lennon Miller is a barber and owns a few salons, so that comment is dodgy. Lee Miller is a barber and he owns a few... Lee Miller is a barber and owns a few salons, so that comment is dodgy. There we go, Big Des. I'm joking, not sure where he's going, but definitely not Celtic. See, there we go. Hook, line and sinker for that one. Who cuts the barber's hair, for fuck's sake? The barber. Anyway, we digress. Let's get back on to rating Celtic players. We've rated Callum McGregor. I rated him about an 8. Arne Engels, some good passes, box to box stuff, a bit like what Brody used to do. Does he dominate spaces? Does he do enough? He played his part in Maida's build up to the goal. Created another few opportunities for Dyson Maida. I'm going to rate Arne Engels. I rated Callum an 8. So Arne Engels isn't as good as Callum. So I'm going to rate him 7.5. Arne Engels, 11 million down the drain. 6! Jesus, Anglo Inertia. Mar Barber is a Rangers fan, by the way. Lol. Got to watch what they say to him in case he got a dodgy haircut. CCV goal was KT. It was a bit like KT. 7 from Arne Engels. Engels' top draw yesterday. Engels 7. What do you rate? If he was top drawer, what do you rate him? What was your rating for Arne Engels? I'm going to say 7.5. 6 at a push, said Anglo Inertia. James says 6.5. Also, amazing Arne 7 plus. Engels 8, says Gemma. Engels, he will get better, says Shadowplay. He will get better. I think that you won't see the best of Arne Engels until next season, until we get a full pre-season with him. And I just hope that Celtic get their finger at this summer and get in a lot of players that will be playing. Why is the lights not on the chair? There we go. The lights are on in the chair now. Engels hasn't lived up to our expectations. James, what was your expectations for a 21-year-old player? Just, it's a serious question. What was your expectations for such a young player? Take away the price tag. Price tag is something that shouldn't. When you look at young players, it's generally the price tag means that they've got that potential. If Arne Engels had come in and cost £2 million, would he have lived up to your expectations then? That's an interesting comment. I just think that he's not lived up to expectations. I don't think that we had. Well, I personally didn't have any expectations of him due to the age of the player. He was brought in to support and take over from Callum McGregor. Well, he doesn't play the holding midfield role. He's never played the holding midfield role. He was always further forward. So I don't think he was brought in to take over from Callum McGregor. I don't think that was the Celtic plan. He's more... The days of a one-club player are gone after Kalmak. We'll have a series of short-term captains, says Gigi. Interesting one. Well, we have a load of short-term captains. Is Callum McGregor the last of a dying breed at Celtic? Players that will come through the ranks. There could be somebody that comes through in the next year or so that changes that. With Kieran Tierney having been at the club, left and come back, you're maybe right. 11 million is a great investment in my opinion, says Big Des. Taylor's head has been turned by the team he was brought up supporting, says David Cook. Oofed. We've been linked with a Newcastle player. Take him on a free. My expectations that he would slot in quicker to our style of play, says James. I don't. No, I'm going to disagree with that, James. I don't think that he would. If you look at any player that comes in during certain windows, they always need it, and especially foreign players, and especially players that Scottish football's a different kettle of fish. Do you know? It's a different kettle of fish to playing in European football. European football is more tactical. It's more technical. And there's not so much fucking flying tackles into you and fucking elbows in the face and fucking shoulder charges. But anyway, Engels could be a silky midfield player in a couple of years. Yes, he could, Richard. The Newcastle player signed a new contract. Oh well, there we go. Anyway, Arne Engels. We move on from Arne Engels, who are rated at 7.5. We move on to Rio Hatate. Rio Hatate, who scored... I mean, what happened to Rio Hatate yesterday? I mean, he must have done a yang. He must have got his Nat King Cole over the last couple of days. Because he came out with a swagger. Yesterday. What we've not seen with Rio Hatate for such a long time. Rio Hatate walked out and went, yeah, I've been getting it. This is my ground. Unless you play with Italian clubs. Yeah, this is true. Rio Hatate, he came out with a swagger yesterday. What do you rate Rio Hatate as yesterday? I'm going to rate Rio Hatate for his attitude and everything that he did right in the first half. I'm going to rate him a 9 because that's the real Rio Hatate. The real Rio Hatate stood up yesterday. And Rio Hatate... If he does that on a week-to-week basis, Rio Hatate is a 30-odd million pound player all day long. But the inconsistency that Rio Hatate's had over the course of the season has dampened what we might get from him. Or has it? Other clubs out there that are looking at Rio Hatate and going, do you know what? This guy could slot right into our club. Anyway, I rate Rio Hatate 9 for yesterday. Stephen Johnson says 8.5. Morning to you, Stephen. Anglin Ershaw says 8+. Playing like a prime Modric. Yeah, you could say that. He was bossing that midfield. He took control of it. Rogers, I bet, gave Hatate a talking to. Says shadow play. Either got a talking to, or he's just... Would a talking to... He's affected the player in some way. And I think that Brendan Rodgers should be. I think it should be talked up. I like this one for that. The fact that he did whatever team talk he did to the team during the week, it worked. Anyway, Tarmac a 9 from him. Arne Engels, a fantastic talent. The players around him need to up their levels to his, says GG. Hatate had a wonderful game yesterday. What a difference in the man yesterday. Exactly. Gemma says 9. Tarmac says me. Shall I play Hatate when he's on is a beaut to watch. He is that. He was unlucky not to get a hat-trick yesterday. He was unlucky. Hatate 9, best performance of the season. Eddie says 9.5. I'm rating him about a 9. Hatate's number would be better if Engels never stole the penalties off him. I don't think that Rio Hatate has ever been lined up for penalties. It's usually Adamira that tries to steal the penalties. Hatate's numbers would be better, says McLaughlin P, if Engels never stole the penalties. Right, we move on from Hatate to the front 3, which is James Forrest, Dyson Maida and Adam Ida. James Forrest yesterday, who was trying to get that elusive goal, and will he manage to get it before the end of the season? He got the nod over Nico Kuhn, who was slapped on the wrist and put on the bench, and he combined with Johnson really well. We combined with Hatate well also. He had an attempt in and around attacking third, but he just never got that. He never got a clear-cut chance. He was making room for himself. He was getting into good spaces, which you would expect from James Forrest, but he just wasn't there or thereabout top level. And is that due to game time over the season? Is that due to players that haven't played with James Forrest a lot over the seasons, knowing what James Forrest can bring to you as a player? Got fucking hair growing on my nose. It's tickling my nose. So James Forrest, what would you rate James Forrest yesterday? I'm going to give James a 7.5. Eddie says 9. Hatate's number, no, that was for Hatate. Stephen Johnson says 8.5. Jamesy was brilliant yesterday, 8.5. James Duffin says James Forrest 7. Good to have Forrest back. Could heads been turned to get a good price for him and reinvest. 6.5. Oof. Joseph says Rio played brilliant yesterday. I think Rio gets yeah. I'm not too sure. I wouldn't rate him a 10. Wouldn't rate him a 10. Eddie says 6.5 for Forrest. Forrest was his usual busy self. He drives us on. I rated him a 9. Forrest was good, but not as good as he's been in other games. G7.5, tried too hard to get a goal. Baz, it's good having you back on lives. Dave, we're back. We've got the new computer system set up, and it was a long time happening. We did try to fix the motherboard on the old laptop, which was only a year old, just over a year old, but it was dead. With there was seemingly a power surge that burnt out something on the motherboard, but seemingly it's a thing that goes on with it. But anyway, Gemma says Forrest done well yesterday, most game time since coming back from injury. Poor boy was fat when he came off. 8.5 to 9 for Gemma. Oh, interesting, Gemma. Interesting. Who's sitting there with the Wayne, and I was trying to record a video earlier when my video call came through, and I was like, it's not just my waters are broken. Oh god. Forrest first game back, done more than Kuhn in the last 3 teams. Forrest gets an 8, and it's good. GG, why hasn't Johnny Kenny been given a run? After cutting his loan spell short, the boy was flying. GG, it's because that Brendan Rodgers, and I've said this before, Brendan Rodgers will have one player for each position on the bench. Now, he doesn't have a striker on the bench because he played what you could say is he our first choice striker. And Dyson Maida, I played Dyson Maida on the wing, and I said before the game yesterday that Adam Ida will get taken off, and then Dyson Maida will get put into the middle of the pitch, which happened, which is unfortunate for Johnny Kenny because then he can't get on the bench. And it's unless there's a change of formation, Johnny Kenny's not going to get on the bench. No third choice striker is going to get a place on the bench when Brendan likes to have one player. Look at the team. Look at the people that are on the bench every week, and look at the positions that they play in. And it's a tactical bench. It's a tactical game, you'll say, but it's a tactical bench, and players are there for tactical reasons. They aren't there on merit, which I think is, I mean, you could say, look, Tony Ralston, he's there on merit, he should get some game time. He's sat there all season, and he comes on and has a fantastic strike. The big brick, he'll run through walls for you, and then he'll rebuild it. Do you know what I mean? So it's interesting. While you're mentioning your new computer, the stream is back to being perfect again. Good. It should be. It should be after what went on. But thank you for that for Angling Ayrshire. Pubcat says Hatate was penalty taker before Engels arrived. Minge Engels' debut. Kalmak took the ball off Hatate, who gave it to Engels. It was against Hart, wasn't it? Wankland and some other gimp were mouthing off. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. But it is what it is. Forest first game back at Dunmore and Coombe. We've done that one. Johnny Kenny will be out on loan again this summer. Hopefully he goes to another Scottish club. Says Shadow Play. If you want Johnny Kenny to... Everyone knows that I would rather the Celtic play with two strikers. As a club, I think the chances that we can create a change of formation to a 4-2, I don't know. You would need to change the formation, and I think that Brendan Rodgers, fucking hair's doing my head in. Brendan Rodgers needs to come up with a formation that plays two strikers, because Daniel Cummins doesn't want to stay at Celtic because he's not going to get a chance. Fantastic player. Rocco Vata. There can't be the same issues with people playing players not getting game time. And if Johnny Kenny decides, do you know what, I'm just going to leave Celtic because I'm not here to sit on the bench. I'm not here to play, like, be in the squad but never get any game time. So it comes down to Brendan Rodgers. And I think that I'm actually starting to seriously think that Brendan Rodgers will see out the last year of his contract, and then that'll be him. He won't sign a new contract due to the ongoing behind the scenes issues that seems to be at Celtic. There seems to be a little bit of loggerheads between Brendan. We'll talk about this in a couple of minutes once we've stopped rating the team. Anyway, Johnny Kenny, he never even made the bench today. So Jamesy Forrest got a 7.5. Was it? It was Dyson Maida. Dyson Maida, a little tap in. He almost had 2 goals, but one was ruled offside. Back amongst the goals yesterday after a blank canvas up in Perth. Came in from the wing, which was unusual for him over the last couple of weeks, but he picked out Johnson's cross and found the net with it, with a little 6-yard box tap-in. I'm going to rate Dyson Maida an 8.5 due to his durability as a player. Durability as a player, the fact that Dyson can play on the wing and he could play as the striker, and he done well yesterday. I would say Dyson for me gets an 8.5. What do you rate Dyson? Dyson Maida 7.5. It's Hill Celts on tour, says Stephen Johnson, and where he's all gone. Just don't go there now. Dyson 8+, says Big Des. Angling Ayrshire says Dyson 9, like every other game he plays. 9. 9-year-old Lee Devlin says Dyson Maida 8.5. Go in your cell, wee man. Dyson Maida 8.5. Tamak says 10.5. Gemma says 9. Stephen Johnson says 8.5. Here will Baz, if Brendan Rodgers go, who will come in? Or is this their demise? No, it's not our demise. It's we go to the next level again. We do not go for anybody that's been in before, or we don't go backwards. And that's a year down the line, Joseph. You never know, what may change, but that's my gut feeling now. That's my gut feeling. Just with little snippets. I mean, Brendan Rodgers said yesterday that 150% he will be here next season. If he doesn't sign a new contract this summer, he will be off at the end of his contract. And I did say that he would be here for the 3 years. People said when Brendan Rodgers first came back in that he would leave halfway through his contract. And I said, no, he will stay for the 3 years. He will stay for the 3 years to prove a point, to take Celtic to that next level in the Champions League. And I think that he will know himself. He says that, look, players and managers at a club like Celtic have, and it's any big club. You know, there's very rarely do managers stay 5-6 years, unless you're Pep Guardiola. But even then, he's going to be leaving. So managers know that they get a 3-4 year run at a club and then that's it. And I think that Brendan Rodgers will know that if he can take the club next season into the last 16 of the Champions League, he will have taken Celtic as far as he can and as far as the club are willing to back him. He will know that the club will not go that extra mile financially. He knows that the club has been a bit lackadaisical when it comes to transfers. And he'll know that the last 16 is probably the limitations of where Celtic can get to in the Champions League on an ongoing basis. And if he manages that next season, I think he'll walk out with his head held high. But then again, he might stay. Brendan Rodgers will only stay if we improve our position in Europe, yeah. Still plenty of time for Brendan to sign on the dotted line. Probably just want to see if he could receive full backing. Yep. When Rodgers leaves, I'll take Goodson from Bowl. There's a good shout. Although we did take Ronnie Dyler from up that neck of the woods, and some people say that wouldn't. Anyway, we've rated Adam Idah. There's only one player left that was on the pitch yesterday in the starting setup. I'm not going to rate all the subs, because there's no point. Well, we might do. Adam Idah. Spearheaded the attack. He was in the 6-yard box, failed to create enough opportunities, or doing anything. I think it was always set up for him to come off in the 60th minute for Jota, Nico Kuhn to come on. That was always going to happen. So Adam Idah, for me, I would say 6.5. 6.5. What do you rate Adam Idah? What do you rate Adam Idah? There's quite a few publications now going with the headline for the Stoke player that Celtic may be after. First up, will the board back him before he signs a new contract? I can't see it. I think they will, Angling Ayrshire. They'll back him this summer. If they don't, he will definitely not. Stephen Johnson says 5 for Adam Idah. Angling Ayrshire says 6 for Adam Idah. Eddie says 5. 6 says Tammac. 6.5 for Adam Idah, says James. Shadow Blaze says Adam Idah 5 for me. Nah. 6.5 says Gemma. Shame Adam didn't score. He holds up play as well, but his lack of goal too often, making it harder for himself. I'd say a solid 7. Big Des says 7 also. Celtics on Tour says 7. Joseph says 8. A Brown Warrior said he will prove a point. Brendan's record in the Champions League was average and poor prior to this season. So hopefully this season is the start of something, not a one-off for him and us, which is an interesting one. It just isn't clicking for Adam Idah, says James. Adam Wolf, Wex, the hater of Adam Idah, says 2.5. And Gigi says Adam 6 at best yesterday. And Bedev67 says 5.5 for Adam Idah. Adam Idah, I give him a 7, says George. Flying Column says, I think Adam didn't play badly yesterday, just looks bad for him. If he scored 5 and he didn't score, I'd give him a 6.75, which is generous. He does do everything that he's asked to do as a player. And Brendan Rodgers will point out, look, the pressure isn't from Brendan. He does the part of the game that Brendan asked him to do. if goals come, then it's a bonus. When you score 5 goals, the manager can't be upset about who scores the goals. So it'll be about what he brings to the team and what he did in the build-up play to say that if he's but Adam Ida walking, he was disappointed in himself that he didn't manage to get onto the score sheet. I'd do a swap with Cardiff, so give them Adam Ida and take Callum Robinson. I don't think that'll happen. But anyway, Stan Potro have raised Baz. Are you also sick of how this club is run? Yet another transfer window coming up, and it's fairly big rebuild instead of just adding 1 or 2 quality players. I don't think that we get to the summer every year, and I think not this summer. I think that this summer is a summer that was always going to be needing changes due to the fact that certain players have been here 4 years. And I think that the disappointing summers was the last couple of summers. The summer that Brendan Rodgers first came into the club and we brought in 9 players that were already signed off by Ange Postecoglou. And they were already earmarked. You know, Ange had got the list. This is the list of players that we're going to go for in the summer. And Brendan Rodgers come in and went, well, if yous are okay with it, I'll sign them off. We'll get these players in. And then Brendan Rodgers gets halfway through the season and went, these fucking players you've given me are shit. I think that was a disappointing window. I think the disappointing one of going in for a striker twice, going in for an offer and being 400,000 short for Mateus, that was disappointing. This summer, due to the way that the squad and Brendan Rodgers and the squad have had a good season. He's reduced the size of the squad. He wanted to reduce the size of the squad because there was too many hangers-on. When you look at the players that are out on loan, those will generally be players that will want to leave the club anyway. We need better backup players. There's a couple of players at the club that are at the pinnacle when it comes to how they can perform at the club in the Champions League and what money we'll get for them. Dyson Maida's that player. I think that Dyson Maida will be sold just because he's been at the club now for around about 4 years. I think that that's always the Celtic plan. The fact that we're going to have to bring in 4 or 5 players to replace players, Brendan Rodgers over the next couple of weeks has a big decision to make, and it's all about trying to get the younger players into this team. Because if he doesn't, and we go into the next season, which will be his 3rd season as manager, and if he's not brought through one single youth player, Brendan Rodgers is talking shite. Because Brendan Rodgers has said, I wanted to make Rocco Vata our 3rd choice striker. Where does your 3rd choice striker sit on the bench? He doesn't. You can understand why Rocco Vata went, fuck that. I'm not going to get any game time. I don't know, Daniel Cummins coming through the system. Where does your 3rd choice striker sit on the bench? He doesn't. As a player, you only need to look at the bench every week. And you need to look at everyone that's on the bench. And it's all tactical positions. It's all tactical replacements for positions. If Daniel Cummins can play on the wing and then he plays as a striker, fair enough. But Brendan Rodgers wants somebody to play as a striker. He didn't sign the new contract. You've never heard of Daniel Cummins again. It'll be interesting to see what players from the youth team get their opportunities between now and the end of the season. As soon as the league's won, whether be it today when we're all sitting at home or whether it's the 26th, 27th of this month that the league is then won, all eyes, as far as I'm concerned, are going to be on Brendan Rodgers and the youth players. Has to be. Never mind Greg Taylor getting game time. And maybe that's why Greg Taylor got his game yesterday. Because Brendan's went, as soon as the league's won, Greg, I need to start playing the players that are going to be here next season. I'm going to give you your big day at Celtic Park. It should have been the day we won the league. So, do you know, and maybe that was the last time that Greg Taylor will walk out as a player, and not as a substitute. You know, he might come on as a substitute, but then again, he might not. So for me, between now and the end of the season, all eyes are on Brendan Rodgers and what he does with the team. The league's won. We're one game away. If we don't win it today, we're one game away. And when you look at the bench, if Brendan Rodgers doesn't start bringing in youth players, it sends out alarm bells to every single youth player at Celtic to say, this fucker doesn't want to play. He fucking can stand and go, well, I want to bring on youth. It's great to see them in and around the squad. It's great to see them there. But if they don't get an opportunity to play football, they're going to look elsewhere. And it's been proved year after year that the younger players will just go, fuck this, I'm not sitting about. I'm not sitting about. But anyway, we'll need to replace two players. We'll need two players to replace Dyson Maeda. Plan B should be more direct. As an Irishman, Vata isn't all that. The kid had a big ego. Said shadow play. Brown Warrior says, I think we need to play more either strengths when he's the main striker and not ask him to fit a style that focus more bringing in the wingers. Brøndby didn't want to see him. We were pushing to win the league. Yeah, but that's twice. It's twice that we went for Mateus and we didn't pay the money. There was one summer we could have got him for, I think it was 4.6 million, and Celtic went in with an offer of 4.2, their maximum. And now look at him, he's worth like 10 to 14 million. Anyway, whether we agreed, Adam is a target man. Our style has to change. There's the I'm going to do a poll. Spanish keyboards doing what that sound? See the keys are all in the wrong positions, and I'm. There we go. I'm going to start a poll. I'm going to do a poll. Sunday morning poll. Do we need a change of formation at Celtic? If so, to what? Just answer yes or no, and then in the comments tell me what you think the change of formation needs to be. We brought in the 4-3-3 under Ange Postecoglou, played the 4-3-3 formation. Brendan Rodgers has slipped into Ange Postecoglou's bed and kept the 4-3-3 formation, a formation that we didn't play when Brendan was here before. So do we need a change of formation at Celtic to bring out the best in what we have? Now, everyone knows I'm a 3-5-2 man all day long. 3-5-2, for Scottish football, you need a 3-5-2. You only need three guys at the back. I think it's hard to see where Kieran Tierney fits into a 3-5-2 and Alistair Johnson, so you're going to go for a 4. But two strikers are a must at Celtic, not only for domestic games but for Champions League. They're going for the two strikers and the wingers playing more as normal wingers. Wingers playing from the midfield, not playing in the final third, which Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou wanted them to do, coming in and attacking from it. Back in the day when we had Jackie McNamara and Simon Donnelly on the wing, you had Simon Donnelly as what's now classed as a winger. But he was a midfielder. He was on the wing in the midfield. But him and Jackie McNamara were brilliant together. They would do overlaps, they would do the runs, and they knew how each other played. In the modern game, would Simon Donnelly been playing up where Nico Kuhn's playing and where Jota's playing? That's interesting. But I just think that we need two strikers at Celtic, and whether you play a 3 or a 4 at the back, I think that we need to. We need to be able to dominate midfields. We do that already. When you have Greg Taylor coming into the midfield, well, that makes it a 3. So there is formation changes there. You could say, well, we actually do play with a 3 at the back when Greg Taylor goes into the holding midfield role and sort of Moraes flies about in the middle of the pitch. So is that you then playing a 3-5-2 system? Well, it's not really a 3-5-2 because you've got the 3 guys up front. I just think that the formation and sometimes you look at the pitch and you look at the shape of the team, with great teams. When you watch Barcelona play, not that I watch a lot of Real Madrid, but when you watch them play, when you watch the late Fergie team, he's not late, he's still alive. When you watch the Man United team of old under Fergie, they moved in two banks of four, and they had the two strikers up front. They moved in two banks of four. You know, it was, they were in a line. Now modern football has changed, and tactically that's changed, but we definitely need a formation that plays to our strengths. And I think that Brendan Rodgers is just copping out, just keeping the same formation that Ange Postecoglou's had. That's just my own personal opinion. We should be playing two up front domestically, says Gigi. Yep. No word for Liverpool. Two forwards, either laying off passes to the other forward. Yep. So I think also we need to get the summer transfer business right. We have a qualifier coming up, says Flying Column. It would be disastrous if we don't qualify it. Yep, it would be. I think we'll see a lot of Turley and Jude Bonner next season. Well, let's hope so, because I thought that young Francis Turley would have got some more game time this season, but he was put back down into the B team. And when you bring these players in he brought them in towards the end of last season. And then didn't make much use of it. But anyway, Jude Bonner will definitely, hopefully. Do you think that Brendan will try and keep Taylor? Well, Dave is saying in public that he's trying to keep him. How often that conversation takes place, I don't know. Joseph says, Hail Baz, the way Celtic players have been playing, poor, need a rebuild. Want Maida away, there's plenty of other players should be sold. Why are you wanting Maida away? I don't want Maida away, but he's only got 2 years left on his contract. And I think that if he doesn't sign a new contract, Dyson Maida will. You have to sell him this summer. From a business point of view, you cannot let Dyson Maida run down his contract. You cannot let Dyson Maida go into 1 year left on his contract. That gives Celtic no bargaining chips whatever. No bargaining chips. Look what's just happened with Greg Taylor. Greg Taylor was worth £8 million at one point to Celtic. He was rated on transfer market at £8 million. We cannot allow that to happen to your assets. No club, and especially a club like Celtic that relies on player trading model, the player trading model that we have, you cannot allow Dyson Maida to run down his contract. If he doesn't sign a new contract this summer, the sad thing is, I think he'll be sold this summer because he's been here 4 years. He's at the pinnacle of what we can get for him. His valuation is at an optimum high right now as a player. And if he doesn't sign a new contract, you cannot keep him at Celtic to then go into the final year of his contract and hope that he may sign a contract, because God forbid that you lose Dyson Maida for absolutely nothing. That's 25 million down the drain. Dyson Maida never to be seen again. 3-2-3-2. A goalie and 10 up front, says Big Des. Katie is proper wing back, should be used as such. With wing backs, you have no need for wingers, therefore can operate with 2-3 strikers on the park, a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3. There's flexibility in this, says Brown Warrior. Will Celtic, I think if you go for a 3 at the back, the problem that you've got is Alistair Johnston and Kieran Tierney are such good players. I think that Brendan Rodgers will stay with a 4 at the back. He had a 4 at the back when he was at Celtic the first time. I think when you're bringing back Kieran Tierney doesn't play the Greg Taylor role. You know, and I wish Brendan would. He doesn't play that role. We never played this role under Brendan Rodgers the last time, you know. But anyway, Dyson will sign a contract this summer, says Anglin Ayrshire. Brendan's whole game is built around wingers. Yeah, but your wingers can be in the midfield position. Do you know, your wingers can be, they don't have to be starting in the final third as part of a front three. Your wingers could be back in the midfield as part of a midfield. You know, so it would mean dropping somebody out of the midfield to play another striker. But then it would then free up the bench to bring in your third choice striker. So you need to think about that. It's all saying Johnny Kenny's... Brendan Rodgers could sit at press conference and saying, for 25 yards out, Johnny Kenny's one of the best strikers of the ball we've got. Well, when are you going to give him a game time? Oh, well, he can't get on the bench because we've got Adam Eder who sits on the bench and who comes on when Dyson Maida's playing up front. Well, Brendan, are you going to change formation? Are you going to adapt your game as a manager to... Because as it stands just now, everyone that Celtic play against, no, you just go to a flat back five, you just sit back and you make it hard for Celtic. Anyway, do we need a change of formation? There's only 40 votes. Jesus, is that it? What's wrong with you people? Do we need to change of formation at Celtic? If so, to what? I remember Brendan's first game at Tynecastle when he changed the formation at least 5 times throughout the game. He doesn't seem to do that these days. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. And he was a tactical genius, and he was known as a tactician. Think back to what Joe Hart said before we wind the video up, because I've been on for an hour. Think back to what Joe Hart said. Joe Hart said that when Brendan came in, he played the same system as Ange Postecoglou. He didn't change anything. Didn't want to change a winning formation. Didn't want to change a winning team. It wasn't until just after the Christmas and Joe Hart's sitting thinking to himself, when's Brendan going to change things? When's he going to implement his own style? And he's never done that. He's still running on Ange Postecoglou's formation and system. And Joe Hart said it wasn't until way after Christmas that Brendan Rodgers went, right, this is what it means to play for Celtic. And then he brought in his own motivational stuff and all the rest of it, and we went on and won the league. Anyway, that's me done and dusted. Thank you to everyone who has watched the video this morning. We're about to wind up that poll. Only 45 votes. That's a bad one for a Sunday morning. It's good to do a live Sunday morning. Let's wait and see what happens today. Because if the results go the right way, we'll be champions again. Ole, ole. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are.